Good evening, my friends. For the second video here, I would like to make a video response to two individuals who sent me messages. I believe this was like a few months ago. So it's quite late, but here it is. So, our two friends, we have Sammy Nikki 8624, and then we have our friend Wade, username starting with OMG. As usual, I'm going to go ahead and read these questions and then I'm going to answer them. So for the first question, starting from the top, okay, I have two questions. How did you learn Swahili? I have been obsessed with Swahili since 4th grade. I recently graduated from college and I haven't been able to find decent books on Swahili that I think will help me in learning the language. Okay, let me see. So, for my Swahili studies, when I first started learning the language, I had a course. This course was called Language/30. If you've never heard of this course before, it's basically a phrase book with audio. So I was using that at first. I learned a lot of phrases, and I didn't really know anyone, who spoke that language. So I was kind of just, practicing on my own. But like a few years later, I started studying at the university, Ohio State University, and I took all levels of the Swahili language. Now, before I continue with this, we all know that learning a language at the university is not always the best. It's good because you have interaction with other students. But if you wanted to get to a level of comfortability, as I would call it, instead of fluency, because everyone has their own definition of what fluency is. If you want to get to that, you want to become comfortable in the language, then you have to put more work outside the class. And unfortunately, with students who are taking languages at school, they don't have the time to put in extra work for the language because they are full-time students. They have all these classes. They have to prepare for exams and whatnot. And they're, first of all, they're learning. They're not even taking that language course because they want to. They're just taking it because it's a requirement. So there are many reasons why there are unsuccessful language learners at the university. But for me, I've put in a lot of extra time outside the class, and I have my own methods. So this is what helped me to become comfortable in Swahili. I'm a little rusty now. I haven't practiced for a very long time, but when I was taking it at the university, I had a whole bunch of opportunities to practice with the professors and stuff. But now I just started, recently studying Swahili again, so I'm trying to get back to where I was before. So yeah, that's how I learned. I just, I had the phrase book course at first, and then I started taking it at university, and then I just continued to study it seriously on my own at home. Okay, and about finding decent books. This is very, very common amongst beginners. Those who don't have the experience learning foreign languages, they tend to go to a bookstore and just select random books, and it's not always the best thing to do because you'll find that not all books are laid out the same. Some books are laid out pretty, I don't want to say pretty bad, but it's just not the relevance of the material. It's not good. For example, like chapter 1 may deal with booking hotels and ordering coffee and all that stuff. And I don't think many people don't want to learn that stuff at first. It's not fun to learn that. If you're like me, you want to get to conversation at the beginning, learning basic questions, learning the common questions being asked and whatnot. So what I would recommend, if you it's best for you to find a language community where there are experienced language learners who you can ask about finding certain resources, and they will be able to help you swiftly. Why? Because they have the experience. But I know there are people out there who don't have the access to the internet, and they're interested in learning languages, so they may just have to, I don't know, they just probably have to just try out certain things on their own, unless they can find a language community, somewhere else. But that's the best thing to do for now, just to find a community online. um, for finding adequate resources. Okay, number two, you say, how do I become comfortable enough to speak with? Okay, yeah, again, this fluency thing here, I'm not going to say I'm fluent because this is very controversial and everyone has their own definition. What I would use is comfortable. Okay, comfortable. I like to use comfortable because when you're comfortable, you're able to speak with a native speaker. You don't have to use a dictionary. You pretty much can express yourself very clear. I mean, it's the communication is really good. You can pretty much speak in that language without any hesitation. And again, you don't have to use a dictionary. I call this comfortable. You don't have to study the language. Once you get to this level, you'll find that you don't really have to study the language every day, unless you haven't used the language for years and you need to brush up on some things. Then then you can spend a couple weeks going through certain material. But as far as putting in like 3 to 8 hours a day studying this language, once you get to that level, you don't have to do that. It's no longer necessary to put that time in. So I never lived abroad. I just, this is a misconception about language learning. Many people will say that it's impossible to become proficient, comfortable in a language without being overseas, which is not true. Now, being overseas will help you a lot because you're exposed to the language every day. You wake up in the morning hearing the language, you go to bed hearing the language. The language is everywhere, and especially when you're in a place where there's no English spoken. So this helps you out really, really, really well. But you can get to a good level in any language in your own country. You don't have to leave. I've done this in several languages. I've been to Taiwan before and Japan, but before I've been to those countries, I was able to get to a decent level, a good level, comfortable, I would say. I was able to reach a comfortable level, without going over there. I put a lot of time in, but I was able to reach that level. So it took a lot of time, a lot of practice. You have to study, like at the beginning when you first start and learn the language, you have to put in hours and hours and hours. You have to stick with it, do it every day. And if you're very motivated for doing it, that time will fly by. You will be unaware of totally unaware of your progress. It's amazing. So that's how I did it. I just I put the time in. I used a lot of resources. That's basically what I did. Stay motivated and just practiced a whole lot with native speakers. So it's all about time, patience. So you could definitely become fluent or comfortable in Spanish, Portuguese, Brazilian, or whatever, any language you want. But again, you have to put that time in, make sure you have the adequate resources, the right attitude, and the motivation, and you'll get those results. So finding people is this can be a bit tricky, especially if it's a language that is considered obscure. For example, I'll find a language that I've studied in the past, like Hmong. Okay, this Hmong language is an Asian language and it's considered obscure. It's a language that is it's not so common studied by people. I mean, you have to have lineage. Most of the time, people will study this language because they're either Mormons or they're part of some sort of religious community, or they have lineage. And I started studying this language with barely any resources. It was hard to find resources. So I think with a language like this, you have to use the internet. Like this, exactly. That's what I had to do. I used the internet. I used PayPal, or I said PayPal, Pal Talk. I used Pal Talk and some other online communities to practice Hmong forums. I don't have any native speakers of Hmong in my city, so I had to use the internet. So the internet is a very, very good tool for finding native speakers. So, Now, but Spanish, language like Spanish, it won't be difficult to go out, somewhere in public and find a native speaker of Spanish. It'd be pretty easy to find them. But you can also use the internet for that as well. All right. I know that was pretty long. Those were pretty long responses. So let's go on to Buddy Wade. Okay. So let's see. Hello, Lao Shu. I've been watching your videos for a couple of months now, and they have helped me tremendously. But I was wondering, you may have already made a video about this, in which case, sorry for this message. Around what point in the language learning process should one start to study a particular language's grammar? Some say that you should study the grammar right off the bat, while others say to wait until after you're far advanced into the language. But what do you think? Yes, this is a very good question. I think I did make a video on this a while back. I can't remember the name of it, title. But yeah, I have my own opinions about grammar. Now, before I get into it, I love grammar. I always say this. I love grammar. Okay, I really do. Let me see. Yeah, I really do love grammar. It's so fun once you become accustomed to the language, the structure of the language. I mean, just the language in general. You're able to explain the grammar. It's fun. It's very fun, and I love that. But at the beginning, I do not recommend learning grammar. Like, that's just my philosophy. I don't really study heavy grammar. Now, I may study some basic things like, personal pronouns, try to, get those down. But as far as heavy grammar study, I don't do that. Like, for example, languages like Czech or Russian or Slavic languages with cases, I wouldn't spend time trying to memorize cases. I'd rather make mistakes and get the ending wrong. I'd rather do that and learn from the mistake than sitting down, spending hours on trying to memorize the case, instrument of case, and all that stuff. I wouldn't do that at the beginning stages. Now, there are some exceptions where you would study grammar at the beginning, and I think that's if you're in a university, if you're studying for, let's say you have a class 101, then you don't have a choice but to study grammar. You have to, because you may be tested on certain grammatical terms. So I think that that's an exception where someone will study grammar at the beginning. To each his own. Some people, even if they're not in university, they still like to start off with grammar study. I mean, everyone is different. But I think if you want to learn naturally without being stressed out, I think starting a language without grammar study is the best way to go. Once you start to feel comfortable, you're able to express yourself. You start to find yourself putting sentences together off the top of your head. You don't have to look up anything anymore. You're becoming more comfortable with the language. Then you can start studying the grammar. Go grab a grammar book and start getting into the grammar, because what's going to happen is you're going to say, oh, wow, so that's why it's like that. This is why. That's why. Oh, okay, now I get it. You're going to be doing that a lot, but if you don't have any experience with that language, then you're going to have it's going to be stressed. It's going to be very stressful, especially if it's a language with very, very complicated grammar. So, that's my opinion. I believe that one shouldn't start learning grammar until they start to start feeling comfortable in the language. So you don't have to wait until you're advanced, high advanced. You can, once you get to like an intermediate level, then you can start learning the grammar, start studying that grammar. But that's how I do it. I find that very, very, very pleasant to do. Okay, because I've had some bad experiences starting on a language learning grammar, and I don't want to do that again. So that's it. That's it for the questions. I know that was pretty long, but I wanted to try to answer those thoroughly. So if you have any other questions, anyone else, just let me know. Send me a message. I still have some other video responses to make. I'll probably make some another day. But that's it. Let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks for viewing, and wish you guys the best with your language learning.